Okay, hello. I'm Kiana Marrie, and today I'm going to teach you about what Kundalini Yoga is and what it isn't. So this is a prologue video as part of my Kundalini Yoga curriculum that I'm making so you can understand what Kundalini energy is, what Kundalini Yoga is, and a bit of its history, the process of a Kundalini Yoga practice, and how I show up as a teacher for you in this curriculum. So I have a bunch of notes here and research. I just wanted to make sure I stay on track because there are many ways you can segue. There's a lot of information. So I'm going to give you exactly what you need to know for this curriculum now. So what is Kundalini Yoga? Kundalini Yoga, Kundalini energy first is a latent energy that resides in the spine. Sometimes it's depicted as a serpent wrapped around the base of the spine 3.5 times. Think of your spine like an energy column, and that energy column is known as a nadi. This particular energy column in your spine that goes from the base to the top of your crown is called the Sushumna, sometimes referred to as a Shushmana. Now, intertwined around this Shushmana are two other nadis, one called the Ida on the left, and that is lunar energy, and on the right there is the Pingala, which is solar energy. They spiral upward from the base of the spine to your crown. And the thing is, Kundalini Yoga, Kundalini energy already moves through these nadis and our nervous system. However, at the base of the spine is that latent Kundalini energy. It is an immense concentration of this energy. And through practice of Kundalini Yoga, we stimulate this energy as it rises through the Shushmana, or the Shushumna, through the chakras, which are along this Shushumna. Now, as we do this practice guides the practitioner to self-realization and awakened potential. Kundalini Yoga is sometimes known as the yoga for those who want to show up in the world in their sovereignty, their autonomy, for whatever their purpose is. So now, Kundalini Yoga. I'll give you some of the quick origins here. Kundalini Yoga, much like Hatha Yoga, you might have heard these mentioned just in a group of different yogas. They are both classical yogas, and Kundalini Yoga specifically, traditionally, is intended to bring about mental and physical alignment and spiritual expansion as it cleanses and heals the energy in the nervous system. So Kundalini itself goes back, Kundalini Yoga and Kundalini energy itself goes back roughly to the Vedic period of India, to the Shandilya Upanishad, and the Yoga Kundalini Upanishads. Now, these Upanishads are part of the Vedas, which are a series of texts within greater texts, and they're so vast that literally an entire period of India's legacy and history is dedicated to it, the Vedic period. So there, Kundalini, in those Upanishads, Kundalini Shakti is described as something that awakens through pranayama, also known as breath work, mudra, body movements, also known as asana, mantra, and meditation. Now combined, these are the 5 pillars of Kundalini Yoga. Now, for a bit more modern history of Kundalini Yoga and how it came to the West, in roughly 1968, Kundalini Yoga was brought to Canada by Yogi Bhajan, who then brought it to America in 1969. I think Southern or Northern California. He founded 3HO and taught Kundalini through that organization, and over time, teachers beyond just 3HO propagated, and Kundalini had become a bit more wider known amongst the Americas. So now I would like to talk about what Kundalini is not, just to nip some things in the bud. First and foremost, Kundalini is not, it's not dangerous. What is dangerous about Kundalini and Kundalini Yoga, if anything, is mispractice of its intended use. Oftentimes in Western culture, it is depicted as this thing that gives you superpowers and make you super strong, but if you don't have it awakened by this right person or something, it can mess your life up and it'll do all these things. If you are not practicing it right, or if you're not taking time to do the practice, to get that energy moving throughout your spine, not forcing it, not sensationalizing it, then yeah, you might experience some things. If you mispractice anything, if you mispractice a discipline, there are repercussions and drawbacks that come with that. Some people do mention with Kundalini Yoga, if you don't practice it right, you might experience extreme psychosis, paranoia, things like that. I don't want to attribute those things strictly to the practice. Again, mispractice of anything can bring negative repercussions. If you work out wrong, you're going to hurt yourself. You see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to make that clear. So another thing, the process of Kundalini Yoga, for all intents and purposes, is meant to deepen and expand the awareness and connection with the universal spirit, God, energy, unity consciousness, whatever you refer to source energy as. That's what the process is doing. That's what it's for, okay? So another myth is a teacher will initiate Kundalini within another person or a student. Now, the way I was taught, that's not how we do it. In the way that I experienced it before I was formally taught, that was not a good thing. You might see some videos where people are doing various movements and someone appears to be waking Kundalini energy up through them. I will take the bold stance and say that that is something that is sensationalized, okay? That leans into the territory of commodification. That's not what I'm here for. Kundalini is something that you can practice with discipline and with good guidance, whether it's from research, preferably a teacher to at least guide you how to do it. I mean, it's something that everyone can do. You don't have to wait for a particular person to awaken something in you by force or by insistence. Just want to make that clear. So another thing, Kundalini Yoga is not devil worship. Now, I mentioned earlier when I explained what Kundalini energy is and how it's sometimes depicted as a serpent. The serpent has, in at least Western culture, has been depicted as something evil, something sinister, something satanic. And I'd like you to know that in most other cultures, it is not that. The snake represents transformation, a very deep transformation of the self and the energy, and it also represents the cycle of life. Beyond the Ouroboros, it's not always a negative self-eating cycle. So that's something to take into account here. Just want to make sure that's clear. Another thing that Kundalini is not, it is not a shortcut to superpowers. Now, whether you are deeply into the knowledge of what cities are a sort of way to access yogic supernatural abilities. Kundalini is not a shortcut to that. It is not the shortcut to being a Marvel villain or a superhero. It is a way to awaken your potential for whatever that is for your calling in your life here. Okay? I just want that to be clear as well. So I'm just making sure I go through these things because these are also things that I experienced before I had my formal training. And that's, again, we'll get to how I want to show up for you as a teacher. Another thing is that it is not about worship. So in Kundalini Yoga, you will use mudras, and you will use mantra, and you will reference certain energies or deities. Remember, Kundalini Yoga is a very ancient practice. You are communing, when you practice Kundalini Yoga, you are communing with energies that go beyond what you may have grown up knowing. But that does not mean you are devoting yourself, obligating yourself, or worshiping another deity. I just want that to be clear as well. I know I say that at the end a lot. I just want that to be clear. But, you know, I do want that to be clear. So with that being said, I'd like to move on to the next step, which is the process of a practice. So The practice of Kundalini Yoga looks as such. We have a little bit of breath work. We tune in with the Adi mantra. We then do some warm-ups, and then we will do a Kriya, and then we do a meditation. And then before we do that meditation, we will do a deep relaxation, then a meditation, and then we will close out. So that's generally the overall skeleton of a Kundalini practice. Now, what is an Adi mantra? The Adi mantra is a tuning in. It is the mantra that is the fastest possible vibratory path to union between ourselves and the divine, whether it's the universe, God, source, whatever you call it. Adi means primal or primordial. So you're calling on a primordial energy. You're not calling on any particular deity in this moment. The Adi mantra, it tunes the mind and the nervous system and preps these things for the actual practice. It looks a little something like this. You'll sit in prayer pose. This is a mudra, and you will do some breath work, and you will tune in. You will do it 3 times. You'll say Om Namo Gurudev Namo, which means I bow to the teacher within. And we will get more into that as we talk about mudras and mantra. So now, after the breath and tuning in, come the warm-ups. Now, warm-ups are a crucial part to many kriyas, and these kriyas require the spine to be warmed up and flexible. Now, we start with warming up the base of the spine, and we work our way upwards. So we'll start with things like butterflies or Sufi grinds, because that really gets things stirred up in the waist and the lower back. And then we'll make our way up doing other warm-ups or exercises like spinal twists, spinal flexes. But generally, we work our way upward. And we also sometimes include the sciatic nerve in some of these warm-ups. And they're not intense, high interval things. We take our time in our practice and we go as far as we can. Okay? So if this information that I'm giving you is a bit cumbersome, just keep that in mind. Okay? So warm-ups provide the opportunity to feel your body and the difference between a good hurt and a bad hurt. Now, a good hurt is muscle resistance. It's like when you're working out, it's a little rough, a little painful. You'll feel that in Kundalini too. If nothing else, you're working with your body. Your body has weight, your body has tension, and we use that to our advantage in this practice. Now, a bad hurt is something that is overstretching, it's hurtful, it genuinely hurts. And this is something that we say in the practice of Kundalini Yoga, common sense. If it hurts, stop, okay? Bring yourself to a stop. Don't force yourself to do something. That's how we hurt ourselves. That's how we have a negative association with a practice or ourselves. So don't push yourself. So moving on, as such, practice with caution, discernment, intuition, and start with the minimum before jumping to the maximum. Whether that's pace or time length. Sometimes we'll do a warm-up for 1 minute, sometimes 3 minutes. And regardless of what we do, we take time, we take moments between warm-ups to settle the energy and let it integrate into our body. That's a very crucial aspect to Kundalini Yoga, the liminal space, the transition between everything that we're doing. After the warm-up comes the Kriya. Now, a Kriya is a rhythmic sequence of postures, exercises within a container, okay? So you might hear me say Kriyas. That means a reference of all the different Kriya that are out there, okay? So when you're talking about all the different Kriyas that are out there, we will pick usually one Kriya for the practice of a Kundalini Yoga. And in that practice, in that one Kriya, there will be a sequence of movements, different body postures and movements before we do the meditation. In the Kriya, they are very integral prior to meditation. So while Kriyas involve rhythm and movement, sometimes there's an intended pace. However, the general starting point is slow and steady, and we increase gradually and carefully. The Kriya is often, in and of itself, a warm-up for the meditation. So where the warm-ups are for the warm-up for the Kriya is the warm-up for the meditation. And there's also a lot of beneficial things that happen within each Kriya that you do. Excuse me, 1 second. This is my emotional support glass with grape juice in it. So the way we conclude each sequence in a Kriya, unless instructed otherwise, is to inhale, holding the breath in place, and exhaling and relaxing out of the posture. So there's a bunch of Kriyas we could call off the top of our head. Like there's things that I was about to just try on the fly, but for example, if we are doing a Kriya or a warm-up, say we are finishing up, we're doing this, inhaling to the left, exhaling to the right. When we're finished, we inhale, come to the center, exhale, and relax. That's what I mean. That's important because once we get into that position, we are literally, on an anatomical level, we're giving our body a chance to expand and then settle into place. That's where the healing and the integration happens. Okay? And you'll feel it as you do these practices, because in those quiet moments, we like to give ourselves silence, a time to observe without judgment, whether it's inside or outside. Okay? So after the Kriya comes a deep relaxation, also known as a Shavasana. Now, when we are in Shavasana, we are often in a pose called corpse pose. Now, that might be frightening for some people. It was for me, because there were some things I was healing at the beginning of my formal training. And it's called corpse pose because it's a symbolic opportunity to let the old die and let the new consciousness come in. You might have experienced it before. It's like an ego death in a way, but not necessarily labeling it in a Shavasana. That might happen for you, or it might not, but we give ourselves that time to integrate regardless. It's not like we're reaching to it. We just let it come to us. Now, in this pose, we gradually relax our entire body in sequence to allow biochemical and energetic changes to take place. Deep relaxation is more active than conventionally passive, as we might think, because in deep relaxation, we're not just allowing ourselves to fall asleep. We maintain a level of intentional awareness. We note the sensations in the mind and the body, and we allow those things to integrate. Sometimes when I think of that, I think of this meditation called Leaves on a Stream, and it's very peaceful. So this form of relaxation is like I said it before, at a minimum, it's 5 minutes. Sometimes it can go up to 15. It really depends on the practice. So following the deep relaxation comes the meditation. Meditation is vast in itself. However, for the practice of Kundalini Yoga, meditation is focused to develop the mind to be a servant rather than a master over oneself. The use of posture, breath, and focus during a meditation, that helps us with that discipline. That in and of itself is the discipline. So the way we incorporate posture, breath, and mental focus is posture for a straight spine, so that Sushumna has the maximum efficiency that we can handle. Breath, we do breath work to maintain a specific breathing pattern, and we have our mental focus. And common focal points in Kundalini Yoga include the third eye point, which is right between the eyebrows and just above. We have our nose, our heart center, the bottom of our chin, and there are accommodations. If you can't do that, or if it hurts, there's accommodations that we make as well. So if there are difficulties gazing at certain focal points, like you get dizzy or it hurts, just know, just a light gaze is what you want to focus on. When in doubt, try to focus on your third eye. That's what I say. So after the meditation, we close. And when we close, like we did with the opening, the Adi mantra, Om Namo Gurudev Namo, we close with Sat Nam. Sat Nam means truth is my name. Sat meaning truth, Nam meaning name. Truth is my name. We do a long Sat, short Nam, sometimes 1 time, sometimes 3 times. And it is the vibratory closing of Om Namo. So if we're doing a practice and it goes Om Namo Gurudev Namo, we'll close with Sat Nam. So that's typically how we open and close a practice. Now, maybe you're like me and that did something sensory for your ears or your environment or maybe your phone. I don't know. But that vibratory pattern, when you do that in your body, for me, I feel it in my spine, in my head, and everything's resonant. And it's very powerful. So it's very important that if we open, we close, okay? And we open and close if we're going to practice. So my position as a teacher. Now this one I didn't write a whole lot of things for because I just want this to be very concise and maybe there'll be some examples. I'm doing this with formal training and I am focusing it through my own little prism of lived experience. If you watched my long presentation before, I gave a little bit of my lore backstory. I learned about Kundalini when I was really young, and I learned about mantra and mudra, but I didn't know about Kriya and tuning in and all of these things. So maybe now all of this gives you some context why I'm very particular with certain things, explaining that you don't got to worship anything, you don't got to do certain things, and you can do this at your own pace, but there is a practice to be respected if you are going to do it so you don't mispractice. That's why. Because you might not always have some negative effect immediately if you do a mispractice. Sometimes it'll rack up and then it'll hit your nervous system or hit your mind really hard. And if you don't have the tools, the discipline of meditation or understanding of mantra or mudra when you're practicing this, then that's a mispractice, you know? So another thing I want to say is this is for creatives, sensitives, queers, artists, thinkers, philosophers, anyone actually who wants a practice that supports their nervous system and their voice. This is for people who have found it hard to be seen, to be heard, or maybe you want to be seen and heard. You know you won't be seen and heard one place, but you know it's out there somewhere. You know what I'm saying? This is for, like, for example, when I'm a creative, I'm a film person, like, I'm a filmmaker. I come from a filmmaker background, but one of the funny things about making this, I didn't want to overproduce it with, the freaking A6400 and, all the lights and stuff, because I want this to be in a way that helps you at least see, like, I'm a human being. I ain't trying to sell you nothing, at least right now. Like, but I'm making this curriculum so you have a tool or an onboarding curriculum to help you through your own spiritual journey, through your own challenges, through your own hurdles, through your own healing. And maybe someone will resonate with how I do it, how I bring it to the table. Some ways that Kundalini Yoga has helped me. Kundalini Yoga has helped me because I'm a trans woman. Before my formal practice, I was very self-conscious about my looks and how I sound. Mantra, which is, the chanting, Om Namo Gurudev Namo, Sat Nam, the chanting of various things, that helped me find comfortability in my diaphragm, in my lungs, in my voice. I don't feel the same way. And, I'm not as dysphoric. And maybe another trans person won't feel that way. But what I'm saying is this practice helps you be aware for the things that might make you uncomfortable. This isn't a practice that is just all lovey-dovey. It's never marketed that way to some, by, I don't want to say never, but it's not often marketed that way by people, who know what they're talking about. Like my teacher, they knew what the hell they were talking about. Excuse my language, but you know what I'm saying? Like I was very specific on finding someone to learn from. So hopefully if this long 24-minute video helps somebody out there who's queer, who's a creator. Maybe you're a musician, a filmmaker. Maybe you're a celebrity or an actress or a musician already. And you're like, I don't know. I need something. And maybe things are too expensive. I don't know. I don't know, man. I just hope that this helps you. You know what I'm saying? The more that I do this practice, the more I learned about myself. And the more I learned, the more I felt I could bring this to somebody in the form of a nice packed curriculum where even if this is the fundamentals is where you start and stop, it'll give you guidance moving forward. So that's all I got. Thank you for being with me for this prologue. Next up, I'm talking about chakras. So see you on that one.